G'day guys, welcome back to another video. We are in the shed. G'day guys, welcome back to another video. So we get asked lots of questions over on the socials and in the comments of our videos about our preparation, the sort of things we do before we go away. And it ranges depending on how long our trips are and whereabouts we're going. But in a few weeks' time, we're going up the guts and we're going to be heading bush for about 3 weeks. So we want to make sure that the car's, ready to go, and we're not going to fall apart on the way. So today I'm going to go and upgrade and clean up and check on the front end, so the brakes especially. So we've gone to Tamer, who have hooked us up with some new slotted and drilled high performance disc rotors and some new ceramic brake pads. So we're going to go through, pull the wheels off and hook them up. Because these guys have done a few kilometers with the extra weight. As far as touring, we've got this big trend of people building these game-changing canopies and builds and putting all the gear on it, and the weight adds up. So we would be, when we're fully loaded, we'd be a touch over our max weights, which means that we're putting added pressure on our tyres and steering and brakes and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that we're safe and the other people around us are safe. So we'll go through, we're going to upgrade the brakes to a much better kit, and we'll see what it's like. So looking at the new rotors for the front of the car, as you can tell, they've got like a sort of triation pattern and they're drilled. So that helps alleviate the gases that are built up between the pad and the disc. Also helps when you got water and mud and the rest of it to escape those pads as it starts to spin and break, so you don't destroy your pads as quick. So with what we've been doing and especially our Una data track and the mud that got up there, wouldn't surprise me if the pads are well and truly worn out beyond their repair. Decided to go for a good upgrade. There's a few different brands on the market, but Tamer were well priced, and hopefully they do the job. So first things first, I'm just going to jack the car up. Now I've got the car on a bit of a level playing field, so we're in the shed. My driveway is unfortunately on a downhill into the shed, so I've got the car as level as possible. So I'm not going to worry about movement. I've chocked the back wheels. I'm going to jack the wishbone up so I can pull the wheel off. I'll crack all the wheel nuts and go from there. So for safety, I've just chucked the wheel underneath the chassis just in case anything does sort of flop and pop, and we'll go from there. So on look, we've got some hot spots on the rotor, so I'm glad that I've picked up the extras. Those brake pads must have been working pretty hard over the last few trips, so yeah, good thing. So now that we've got the wheel off, we just need to take a couple of bolts off the caliper, the back of the caliper, to get that off. So there's one down here, up here, this one here, and then one down here, and then we can take the first part of the caliper off, and then we can take the caliper slide off after. So not long. The other thing I should have mentioned before is wait until your brakes cool down, otherwise she's going to be nice and hot. Probably go through that saying, but just as a heads up. Right, so the 2 bolts on the top there, on the Ranger it's a 13 mil, but yeah, just have a look for yours. Right, so that's off. Those 2 bolts are off now, and I should be able to just wriggle the caliper out of the way. Now you don't want to let that drop because you'll put too much pressure on your brake lines. But there your pistons, your brake pistons. So I'm gonna need to push them back into the housing so I can get the pads in back on when the pads are full, because your new pads are thicker than the old pads. So I'm just gonna sit that up on top of the control arm so that I take the pressure off the brake line from it just hanging on the floor. Now those brake pads should just slip straight out. And they are cooked. So that's the front brake pad. So as you can see, the wear marks are just still there, but you can look at the weight sort of size difference. Yeah, very, very different. So hopefully we get some better braking. Right, so I'm gonna leave that one on there at the moment, but that does not look good. That looks like that's metal on metal by a long way. I'm gonna go take the caliper slide off, and then I can go through and take the rotor off. Some of these bolts can sometimes be a little bit tough, so you might need to use a breaker bar. Give them a bit of a squirt with some WD-40, depends what sort of life you've given them. Give them a bit of elbow grease. So that's the front pad and that's the back pad. As you can see, that there's no brake product, no brake pad product there at all. That's well and truly into metal, as you can see there. Don't ever let them get to that stage. I don't know how they've got that far. This was only serviced 4,000 Ks ago, so yeah. You can see the little clip on the back here. So this is your little, your squealer. So when your brake pad gets down to a certain level, the front one doesn't have it on it, but that will rub on the brake pad and start to squeal, which is the reason I knew they needed to be done. But that's, yeah, yep, dear me. All right, so now that the slide's off, so that's your brake slide, and they're your anti-rattle retainers. So I'm going to keep them just out the way so I don't bend them or break them, because I'm going to reuse those. And then your rotor should just wriggle off. Now, if you have a look, oh, wow, it's like the rings of Saturn. Wow. That is ruined. All right, time to replace them. It's always handy to get some brake clean or brake parts cleaner. This is just a null-on product. Spray on, wipe off. You can use this when you're cleaning your brakes pre-pulling them apart, so without dismantling them, I guess, just to make sure there's no grease or grime or anything like that that's building up. So I'm going to give this a squirt front and back, give it a good wipe down, and then I'm going to try to be really careful not to get any like grease or anything like that on the actual rotor, and I'll probably give it a bit of a clean wipe down before I put the wheel back on. All right. Beauty, time to get it on. Bit different looking. So I'm just gonna give these retainers a bit of a clean, because I want to use them again. Without trying to not bend anything, they're pretty fine and fiddly. Should just pop back in. So I've got those retainers back in, back into the caliper slide. I'm now going to put that back onto the rotor and bolt that up with the two 17mm bolts at the back, and then I can slide the new shoes in. I've got to compress the pistons on the brake, on the caliper itself, and then I can put everything back together. So with the little squirrel bar we're talking about, we're going to chuck that on the back side, and that's going to fit through, and we're just going to put a little tiny bit of grease just on the back pin, so when the caliper's being pushed in, that we don't get any rattles or squeaks. So not a whole heap, but just enough to give a little bit of a layer. I'm going to go through and just slide that back in. You'll see where the notches sort of line up. All right, so to push the pistons back into the caliper, you can buy special tools, which aren't expensive, but just going to use an F-clamp to go through and push that back. So now you can see the difference between the compressed one and the not compressed one. So I'll go ahead, use the F-clamp, push this down, and then be able to fit it all up. I'm gonna give it a last little spray and wipe just before I go too far, just to make sure everything's sweet. All right, so that's all done. So I can go through and put it back up. So same as again, I'm just going to start the first one and then start the bottom one. So I've got it all lined up before I go too hard and fast on the socket. Now, by no means am I a mechanic or overly mechanically minded, but I like to know and learn how to do things in my own car, especially when we go remote. So if anything does go wrong, I can fix it, or I have some idea of what's gone wrong and I can go through and have a play. So sometimes you got to do a couple of things right, a couple of things with other people to learn, and then once you've done that, you can have a bit of a crack yourself. All in all, hasn't been a hard job. Sometimes the retainers and getting the pads in can be a bit of a pain, but that wasn't too bad. So yeah, can't complain. All right, triple checked, make sure all the bolts are nice and tight. Everything's done, tidied up, cleaned up. Time to put the wheel back on. All right, it's time to try. So as I said before, I'm just gonna start the car, pump the brakes until I can feel some pressure build up under the pedal, and then we'll go from there. Right, pumping the brakes so I can feel them go nice and hard, and then we'll take it slow, eh? Well, there you have it, done and dusted, and super glad that we went ahead and upgraded the brakes, the front brakes on the Ranger today. Wasn't an overly hard job, probably took me maybe 2 hours tops for both sides, and that included the road test out before. I can't say it enough, I think it's the most underrated modification you can make on your four-wheel drive, especially these people, and us included, that are loading them up with all the weight ready to go touring. Wish I did it sooner, I'm glad I've done it now. You saw those pads and rotors, they were cooked and well and truly past their lifetime, so yeah, glad we did it. A bit of a shed session, really enjoyed it. So if that's something that you guys might want to see more of, or see some more preparation and things we do to get ready for our trips, hit us up below in the comments and tell us, because yeah, enjoying something different while we can't get out there as much at the moment. So yeah, make sure you like and subscribe and hit the little bell icon to see our next videos. We can't wait to be out on the road real soon. Yeah, Jess and I are absolutely itching to get out there. So till next time, cheers.